guys, Denise with Lazy K Mountain Homestead. Well, today it's another hot summer day, and I am going to make something that my grandmother used to make. They lived in Baltimore City, and it is so hot and humid there. I've been watching the Orioles on the TV here and thinking about those hot, humid, steamy Baltimore nights and how she used to make an icebox cake. It was so refreshing, and we would sit in the living room with a little air condition, and we would really enjoy that. And today I'm going to make a key lime icebox cake. Now, when Mama made it, and she passed away in '93, and I think she was born in 1917. Jello was a big thing. Jello, you took Jello everywhere. You made Jello salads, Jello, Jello, Jello. Uh, the reason being, Jello was such a treat for people back in those days because it had so many different flavors. You could flavor so many things with the different flavors. You couldn't get fresh fruit. You couldn't get in season, but you could get the package of Jello. So she would use lime, and she would just go ahead and put that in with her pudding and her whipped cream. Now she used Cool Whip. I'm going to make a variation of this. I'm going to make a curd, and I'm going to use key limes, which I found at my local grocery store. And I need to juice them because I need a third of a cup. And we are going to use Jello instant vanilla pudding. You're going to need graham crackers, and you don't want graham cracker crumbs. You want the whole graham crackers because we're going to use about a sleeve and a half. I use confectioner's sugar, egg. Um, it's not a complicated recipe, and as I go along, I'll tell you Mom's recipe, which really was fast and easy, and it was delicious. Now, the reason you call it an icebox cake is there's no baking. You use graham crackers as your base, or you could use any cookie. You know, like when you're making banana pudding, vanilla wafers is kind of your base, and it keeps it sturdy and stable. And so you can kind of scoop it out and you can see the layers. Well, that's kind of what an icebox cake is. All right, so let's get started. What I have to do first is juice these little tiny limes are key limes. If you get regular limes, you can use them too, but it's not going to have the key lime flavor. I don't really know the difference except the flavor. When you taste it, it's a completely different flavor. Um, lime, regular limes have a little more bitterness to them, in my opinion. But like I said, Mom used to use the lime Jello, and hers is always delicious, and I always look forward to that. So let's get started here. What I'm going to do is go ahead and roll these limes because I find if I roll citrus fruit, like limes or lemons or oranges, grapefruits. Some people I've heard put them in the microwave to kind of soften them up, but if you just go around and pinch them like this or kind of press on them, you'll feel the juice release from inside there. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut this in half. Well, that was a tough skin. And I got my juicer here. You just juice them however you can, but I just do this with my juicer in a bowl. And 4 of these will give me exactly a third of a cup. Now, if you get smaller key limes, there are smaller ones. You may need to buy more key limes. At my store, they only had 6, so I grabbed 4 because I knew that this size would be fine. And I left the other 2 for somebody else that might be making like guacamole or something. They needed it. Or some kind of wonderful dish for summertime. I can't think of a better way to enjoy the summer except with this icebox cake and the memories of my mom. She was a really good cook, and she did a lot of potlucks at church and would take things like this. Icebox cakes are kind of neat because you can make them up ahead for at least 2 days ahead. in your icebox or your refrigerator, as we call them now, you need to cover it with plastic, but it'll stay, it won't weep, and it won't get gooey or anything, in case you're wondering. A lot of times, like banana pudding does kind of weep, but this doesn't. I'll have to get Willis to sharpen my knives. That's my best knife, and it's losing its sharpness there, or its edge. Oh, this smells so good. I think the thing with key limes is that it's just got a little more tropical flavor to it than a regular lime. So that's what I'm going to go with. That's my story, and let's see to it. All right, let me see what I've got here. All right, we're almost there. Now, like I said, I'm going to make a curd in a few minutes, and we'll move over to the stove. And it's really simple. You can do this in the microwave if you want to. I'm doing on mine on the stove just because, you know me, I'm more of a traditionalist. I do use my microwave, but I use it more when I make soap or warm up stuff. Willis uses it more than I do. Okay. Now you are going to need to use the zest of 2 of these limes. And you can zest them before you juice them. It's clearly up to you. I just go ahead and zest them afterwards. That one's a little bit hard, so I'm just squeezing it, and I'll get all that out of there. You can buy key lime juice at the grocery store in the bottle, so you don't have to do this. But you do need a lime, at least a real lime. You know, it doesn't have to be key lime for the zest, because you're going to need that. That also adds a lot of flavor. And we're going to use zest in our curd, and we're going to use zest at the end when we, right before we serve it, as a little decoration. Okay, so that is my 1/3 of a cup right there. I'm going to set that aside. Now, as far as zesting goes, if y'all have a zester, you know, I always use a box grater. This was Willis's mom's, and we're all about tradition. And I'm just going to go ahead and just zest it. Now, when you're zesting, if you can see that, see where it gets to the white, then you want to turn your fruit around, because you don't want that white or the pith to get in there, because it's a little bitter, and you're wanting just the peel. So I'll just get enough for the curd here, and you can see how it's coming off. I've always just used the box grater. I think the only thing I ever used a zester for was I had, and I've lost it. It was an antique nutmeg zester for actual nutmeg nuts. It was really great, and I could use it as a zester too in my moves. Okay. All right, let me do a couple more. And I'm just using this on the grater, just like if you grate cheese. I'm just using it right on that side. On this grater, box grater, there's different. You can do slices of cheese. There's this, you can do a real fine grate, and then this is even a finer grate. But I find this works fine, and if it's too big, I just chop it with my knife, a sharp knife. So, let me do one more here. It's getting dark outside. I think it's going to rain again. We had some wonderful rain that cooled it off last night. We've needed rain in Tennessee so bad for our gardens, and just to kind of cool off the temperatures. So if it rains again tonight, I'll be happy. Not the wind. I heard some areas a little north of us got some pretty bad winds last night, which I was surprised, near the Kentucky line. Okay, that's about what I want right there. If you can see that, it's probably 2 tablespoons or 1 heaping. And that's all I'm going to need for this. I've got a couple more limes here that I can zest later for the topping, which I'll do while I'm waiting for everything to cool. And we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so let's meet over at the stove. Got my new little remote control. I'm not very good at it, so you have to forgive me when you see it in my hand. You know what I'm doing. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to make the curd. Like I said, you can do this in the microwave if you want to. You just melt your butter in a microwave safe bowl, and then you'll add the other ingredients that you're going to see me, and you're going to stir it up and then put it back in the microwave. I like to do it on the stove because I can actually see the curd, because you do not want it to come to a boil. And in the microwave, sometimes for me, it can scorch, and then I have to start all over again. So what we're going to do first is we are going to put 3 tablespoons of butter. Now, you can, if you've got salted or unsalted, this is salted, and if you had unsalted, you would add 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt to it, because salt does enhance the flavor. But since this is salted, I'm not going to add any. And what we're going to do is just go ahead and melt this on medium. And while we're doing that, I want to show you, this recipe calls for an 8x8 baking dish. And this is not my mom's, but I wish I did have hers, or my mom's. I found this at a thrift shop. I just love it. I think this is from the 70s. But anyways, 8x8. Now, this makes 3 layers. If you don't want to have 3 layers, or you don't have an 8x8, one of these 9x16s will work, but you only have 2 layers. But that's fine too, because once it's in the fridge and you're able to cut it into squares and serve it, it'll be just fine and wonderful. And you can always add a little bit more whipped cream on top if you want to. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just kind of get this to melt. And what we're going to add to this, making a curd, is an egg, sugar, vanilla, and the lime juice. And basically, a curd is kind of like a pudding, but it's fruit-based. Usually citrus-based. You can make raspberry curd. I guess more fruit-based, but I usually make like lemon curd, things like that. Okay. So to this, I'm going to go ahead and add an egg, and I'm just going to kind of whisk it around, just 1 large egg. Probably end up using my whisk anyway. You're going to add the, let me see, how much sugar is this? 1/2 cup of sugar. We'll go ahead and just mix that together. I've got it on medium. You want this to just come to a real good thickening. You don't want it to boil, and you don't want it to scorch. Okay, so this is what it looks like right now. You've just got your butter, your egg, and your sugar. Okay. And I am just going to go ahead and keep mixing that. And let me see, let me get that out of the way so I can get this directions here. I haven't made this in a long time, but I just love it. Like I said, I've been thinking about my grandparents in Baltimore and the Baltimore Orioles. I'm a real big fan. So, okay, so we're going to add the lime juice. Okay. I've got my third cup of lime juice right here. We're going to go ahead and add all of that. Now, with a curd, like I said, you're just going to continually stir until it comes to a thickening. And kind of like a pudding is the best way I can describe it, but you'll know when it's cooked all together. This will be about 3 to 4 minutes, and I've got it on medium. But you can see it coming together there. Let's see if I can move this over so you can kind of really see what I'm doing here. Put this down. You don't really need to see me. Oh, it smells so good. My goodness. Now, after this comes to thickening, like I said, 3 to 4 minutes, and I'm not going to make you stand here and watch me, but you want to continually stir this with a whisk because you want it to be smooth. Now, what I do is I go ahead and strain this through a mesh strainer because you've got the egg in there, and sometimes they've got those little white things on there. And also, you don't want this to come to a boil because it can easily become scrambled eggs. And that's one of the reasons that I go ahead and strain it. This is really thickening up, so let me just get this going, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so we've got our curd thick enough, and one way you can tell, other than just seeing that it's thick, you can use a wooden spoon, and because not a lot of curd in here, but just kind of coat the back of your wooden spoon. I know it's really light, but you can see it, and you just put your finger through. You like it, and if it doesn't come together, your curd is done. And my finger was clean, so, and it is really good. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I don't want to waste any of that curd. I've got my bowl here, and I've got my mesh strainer. And this is a fine mesh strainer, and that's what I like to use. And let me see. I'm going to go ahead and just pour it through there. This is just a good rule of thumb because you do have an egg in here, like I said before. And if the egg tried to cook a little bit, you don't want any scrambled egg bits or that little white thing that sometimes eggs have when you're cracking them. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead, and you can see it's just going through, and then I just go ahead and cup it along with my spatula. Now, what we need to do next with this is we need to put it in the fridge. We need to cover it and put it in the fridge because it needs to cool before we get to our next step. Now, you can also put this in a bowl with ice, and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and just put it in the fridge. You want to cover it with a plastic wrap because that does help it not form a skin. But there is your beautiful curd, guys. Isn't it pretty? So I'm going to go ahead and cover this with plastic wrap. Put it in the fridge, and I'll be back as soon as it's cool, and we will go on to the next step. I always have such a hard time with plastic wrap. Even the good stuff. All right, so we'll be back in 40. Okay, guys, the curd is cool. I've taken it out of the fridge, and I'll put it over here on the island. And the next step we have is we're just going to go ahead and mix 1 3/4 cup of cold milk and 1 package of, let's see, Jell-O instant vanilla pudding. Now, I'm using the French vanilla because that's all the store had. They didn't have regular vanilla, but I think that'll just be fine. This is 3.4 ounces package. It's a small one, so I'm just going to go ahead and mix that together. And then when this becomes a pudding, we'll add our curd to it, some zest to it, and then we'll go on to making our whipped cream that we're going to add to this. We'll fold in. But while this is mixing, I want to tell you, if you don't want to make the whipped cream with the heavy cream like I'm going to do, you can use 1 or 2 packages of Cool Whip, whatever you want to do. I would say that 2 would probably be best for that big tub. And what my grandmother used to do was she would take Jell-O and just open up the little package in here. Now this is sugar-free, so it's a lot smaller. And she would just add this to her Cool Whip as she wanted the flavor, and that's what she would do. And she would do that for even cakes. If she made a Coke cake where you Coke and then you pour your Jell-O in there, your liquid Jell-O, and then you just put your Cool Whip on here with your flavor. So that was good too. And sometimes she would mix up the flavors, like lemon and orange and things like that. So it was always a treat for her to cook, and that was something easy. And like I said, those were flavors that were ready available back in the day. Like we can go to the store and buy pineapple. They couldn't do that back in those days, 40s and 50s, and even the 60s. They didn't have a lot of that available. I think I read somewhere where pineapple wasn't even available on the East Coast until the 70s, and it was really high dollar. So you can imagine no mangoes or papayas or anything like that. Okay, this is ready. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. And it's only 1 3/4 cup of milk. It's not your 3 cups like it says on the package. So make sure you do that, because we're going to add a lot of stuff to this. Okay, so what we're going to do now, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go take this over to the island. Okay, we're back over here at the island. I've got the pudding that we just made. I'm just going to kind of mix it around a little bit, because you don't use the 3 cups of milk. I got that all over me. You may find it's a little gritty in the bottom of your mixing bowl. So I'm just going to mix it up just a little bit to make sure there's no lumps. Okay, that looks good enough to me. Now we're going to add your curd, and it's nice and cool. And because I put that plastic on there, there was no skim or skin on there that you had to remove before you poured it in. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and get all this luscious curd. Now, if you didn't want to make curd, like I said, you could just go ahead and make your pudding and add some lime juice to it, or you could add some of the Jell-O just to give it the lime flavor. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and put half of my zest. I went ahead and zested that other few that I had left while we were waiting for this to cool. And we're just going to kind of fold that in there. And this will also release the oils of the lime, and it will give it another dimension of flavor. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go back over to the mixer, and we're going to make our whipped cream. And like I said, if you don't want to go to that, just use a couple boxes of Cool Whip or your food store brand, whatever you want, and then I'll show you what you're going to do with that in a minute. So what we're going to need for this is we're going to need 2 cups or 16 ounces of heavy whipping cream, 3 tablespoons of powdered sugar, 3/4 teaspoon of vanilla, and 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. So let's get over there to the mixer. Okay, so here we go with making your homemade whipped cream for this recipe. Just going to go ahead and put your 2 cups in here in your mixer, your stand mixer, and you're going to want to use the whip attachment. Okay, and we're going to add 3/4 of a teaspoon of vanilla, and 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt, or a pinch. And then we're going to go ahead and add the sugar. So I've got that. All right, let's just go ahead and get this whipping on low. And what you want to do is get it to high peaks, so it'll take you about 3 or 4 minutes. And I'm just going to go ahead and add the sugar, and this just sweetens it. It doesn't make it a meringue when you're using powdered sugar, like it would, granulated sugar. And we're just going to go ahead. I turned it up to a medium, and when this gets to high peaks, we'll be back and we'll do the next step. Okay, while that is still mixing, and that's the whipped cream, we want it to have stiff peaks like you would if you were using the Cool Whip. That's what we're going for. So I'm just going to let that do its thing. So in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and put 1 layer of the graham crackers. And you just want 1 layer, single layer. And if you have to break them up to fit, that's fine too. This just reminds me of my grandmother so much. Such good memories. My goodness. You know, even though this is a homestead channel, Willis and I are really fond of our memories of our grandparents and our parents. My stepmom is still with us, but my dad and my mom are gone, and my grandparents, all my grandparents are gone. Now, if you have to break these in order for them to kind of fit, this is kind of, it's kind of got rounded, so you're going to have to kind of let it kind of go with the contour of your pan or your baking dish. Okay. All right, so that's 1 layer. And what we're going to do is we're going to add topping layer of graham crackers and the topping and a layer of graham crackers. 3 layers and end with topping. So that's what we're going to do. All right, let me go over here and see if this is ready. One thing I do want to caution you, if you've never made whipped cream from heavy whipping cream, you want to make sure that you don't whip it into butter, because that is what butter's from, cream. So you can see I've got this where it's got high peaks. And what we're going to do next is we are going to gently add half of this, or at least 1 cup in there, like so. And we're just going to fold it. And by folding, that's just kind of doing what I'm doing now. We're not mixing. We want the height that this whipped cream is going to give to our pudding. And it does take a little bit to fold it like this. But you want to get it incorporated, but you don't want it mixed, if that makes sense. Okay, that looks good enough. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to add another cup, or 2 big serving spoons full. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and gently fold this again. Now we've got some left in there. We're going to use that as the top of our icebox cake. I just think this is so cool. Mom, I hope you're watching. I I have so many recipes of hers that I really need to get on my channel that Willis has even not had before. So she was German, Pop-Up was Welsh, so it was a melting pot of yumminess at their house. And plus in Baltimore, we always had fresh seafood. I could never get on board with soft crabs, but I loved crabs, steamed crabs, shrimp. I couldn't do the oysters, but she made all of that. She'd wait for the hucksters to come down the alley. And I think they probably stopped doing that in the 90s, I think. Or maybe the late 80s. Yeah, because she died in 93. So I'd say it was the 80s. Okay, guys, so here we go. We've got all this folded together. And we're going to go ahead and take a third of this because we're making 3 layers. So it's about a cup and, maybe a half. And I'm just going to go ahead and just put it on all of these graham crackers. And your base layer here, you really want to get it covered well. And even if you have to use just a little bit more than you do for all the other layers, that's okay. Because you really want to get this in here and stable it. I don't know what I got on my hand there. Let's see. All right, so now we're going to go ahead with graham crackers. And like I said, if you have to break them up, go ahead and do it. I'm going to go ahead and break these like this. And maybe I can have a little bit better layering. It doesn't really matter because it's all going to be covered. And this just kind of gives the stability and sturdiness of this cake to it. And you want to just fill in everywhere that you possibly can. So see, kind of like that. All right, now we're going to go ahead and put another layer. Oh boy, this is so good. I lick my spoon. If you guys haven't seen my sign over my sink, it says, "Made with love" means I lick the spoon. I lick my fingers too. I'm just that kind of cook. Okay, that was pretty easy. You see all the flecks in here of the zest? So pretty. Okay, and I'm going to have to open up another packet. I figured it'd be about a packet and a half of graham crackers. So I just went ahead and bought a box today. I keep them on hand because I love s'mores. So we like to make s'mores whenever Willis is home and we can get the fire pit going. That's one thing I do make in the microwave. I make s'mores in the microwave. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just fill all these gaps in here. You see how I'm doing that? If you ever had a key lime pie, the base of a key lime pie or the crust is graham crackers. So that's why we're using that. Okay, so now we're just going to go ahead and put the rest of the curd pudding on top of the graham cracker layer. So that's 3 layers. My friend Kathy, who lives here now, she's a native Floridian. And I texted her earlier and I said, "Do you like key lime?" She says, "Oh, I love it." I figured a native Floridian would. But she said she used to go to Publix in Florida and get her key lime cake or pie for her birthday, which was in May. And our Publix doesn't have that. So I'm going to give her and her husband, Bob, a piece of this. Okay, so that's that. Let me just wash my hands real fast. And now we are going to go ahead and add the next layer, which is going to be the rest of this whipped cream. And you're just going to kind of put dollops of it on there. Put that down. So you see this made a lot. So you need to have the 2 tubs or the 1 big tub of Cool Whip or your food, your brand that your store carries. I find that as far as whipping cream like that, Cool Whip type whipping cream, the store brands are pretty good, like Great Value or Food Club. All right, let me just put this stuff over here. And yes, I did lick my finger. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of gently spread the whipped cream around. Isn't that pretty? This really goes, it's a fast recipe. It may seem long because I'm doing a video on it, but if you were doing this at home, the longest part is really just chilling the curd. And I recommend that because I think it's good with the lime curd or key lime curd. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just, I don't want to waste any. Okay, let me get that worked in there. Okay, so now we can either wait or we can, when we're going to serve this tomorrow, or put the zest on here, and that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. Because the zest really has a lot of flavor, and I want the oils of the key lime to really get into this whipped cream. And I got a hunk of there that kind of just fell out. Anyway, I just think it'll enhance it a lot better. Okay, there is your icebox, key lime icebox cake. And we're going to go ahead and cover it lightly with some foil. And I would use plastic, but I think it'll mess with the Cool Whip or the whipped cream. And I'm just going to lightly put the foil over it, put it in the fridge for 8 hours up to overnight. And like I said, this can keep for up to 2 days before serving. You can also freeze it once it's all cold, and you're going to see that it's going to be a solid cake because of the graham crackers and everything, how everything came together in there. You can cut this and actually lift it out like a piece of cake, and you can freeze it up to a month. So it's a great thing for get-togethers, potluck, you know, just like if you're having a barbecue, this would be so refreshing. But anyways, I'll be back tomorrow. Good morning, guys. Well, I'm back for the uncovering of the cake. So I wanted to show you. Now, I used the foil, like I said, because I felt like the plastic would mess with this whipped cream. And this did perfect. If you want to kind of fluff it up a little bit, you can take a fork and kind of go like, you know, like this, kind of, and just lift your whipped cream up so it doesn't look flat, especially if you're going to like serve it at an event or, you know, church or potluck or a barbecue or anything. But isn't that pretty? Okay, Willis is home, but he doesn't want to be on camera. He just got home from off the road, but I'm going to let him taste it. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this. Go all the way across. Now, the first piece probably won't be the prettiest piece, but get that out of there. There we go. Oh, man, it looks so good. And as you can see, this is a big slices. Let's see if I can get a bigger spatula. That's kind of what I need, isn't it? Yeah, I thought maybe that small one would be okay, but here we go. There it is. Isn't that pretty? Your icebox cake. A real treat on a hot summer day. Well, I hope you'll try the recipe. I hope you like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We'd really appreciate it. And let me just try this real fast. Oh, man. Willis, you're missing out. Oh, my gosh. And it's good enough, finger licking good. Y'all have a great day, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.